You were telling me, we were talking the other day, you were telling me about this woman in Washington. I think you said she was a high-powered lawyer.
Yes.
Tell a little bit about that story. That was very interesting, how she wove the belly dancing into...
Yeah, it was very interesting, and I really admire her. She is an attorney in Washington, D.C., a very charged political power-playing kind of climate, and she didn't have any qualms whatsoever about being very, very forward and forthright about her dancing. She didn't hide it from anyone. And I think that's wonderful that she could be confident within her own sexuality and her own professional standing, comfortable with both of those. And I think it takes an incredible amount of security to be able to do that. My praise goes to her.
Yeah. Where were you living at that time when you were in the corporate world?
I was living in Santa Barbara, California.
And what were you doing within that? I know you had mentioned you're a registered nurse?
Yes, I was a registered nurse, and the position I had was it was sort of like an educational consulting kind of role. The company manufactured medical devices, and so I was the nurse that would help doctors and physicians and patients understand how to use the products.
Yeah, I know that there's a whole interesting subject there too, but we won't go there right now.
Too much like work.
Too much like work.
Yeah, it's not fun for me. It wasn't where my heart is. My heart is really with my dancing, and always has been. Although, you know, that was a fun ride while I did it. It was interesting.
You did it for a while.
A few years.
Yeah.
Long enough to know that it really wasn't what I wanted to do with my whole life. But, you know, it was practical, got a good paycheck, and able to buy a home and all of those kind of wonderful earth plane practical things.
Yeah. Question I always have when I see belly dancing in your boots, in your shoes, or in your sandals, does belly dance tend to bring up propositions for men? Yeah,
it can. It can. That is, and when a dance form does not cut off the sexuality and it's part of the dance, in other words, you're not so much accentuating it, but because you're not hiding it, sometimes that can be the only thing that's seen in the dancing. From the clip that you just saw, my intent there was not to project a sexual image. The intent in that clip was to project a joy and a happiness and a lightness. But even with that intention, sometimes you can get those propositions, and it's a skill to handle those with grace and respect for the person who's offering you the compliment. And that's the way I tend to see it. I take it as a compliment, and but you know, I make it very clear that that's not what I'm interested in, that I'm a happily married woman.
That's very gracious. I mean, that in itself would take a lot of graciousness to do something like that. And I'm wondering, you know, how do you do that? How can you take that energy that's directed toward you and shift it around in such a way as not to offend someone, and at the same time, that's.
I find that men are. Actually, it's just if you don't disrespect them and you show that you see that what they've just done is honor you, but that you know you let them know that that's not where you're coming from, and that you're so happy that they find you beautiful, but you're happily married, and that's not what it's about for you. And most men are very fine with that. They're actually quite gracious once you explain it to them that way. I think if you're rude and you made someone feel bad, that's when it would not be wonderful.
Yeah, it stings.
Yeah,
it stings. That way it stings.
Yeah, and there's no reason for that.
You know, one thing we were talking about the other day that I thought was very fascinating, and this is a bigger subject, it kind of takes it out of the realm of belly dancing and into the realm of the feminine and the masculine, but I think it really comes up in the belly dancing. Is you were saying to me how you feel like a lot of times with men, or I'll flip it, with women, they're just being themselves. They're just being themselves, and sometimes men can conceivably misconstrue that a woman is coming on, or is being seductive, or is being flirtatious, or whatever word you want to use there. And we were talking about that, and there were some things that you said about that that were fascinating to me as a man. Just I'd like to hear you elaborate it, but it had to do with something to do with how a woman and just being herself sometimes. You speak to that.
Okay. Well, I'll go to, when I teach belly dancing, what I teach first is to just relax and to just allow yourself to be natural and to flow. And when you allow yourself to be natural and flow, of course, all the different parts of you are expressed. And that includes your gender, your sexuality, your spirit, all of that. And as I was saying before, that sometimes that's the only thing that's focused on is the sexuality. And really, it is kind of difficult, because sometimes, when you're just being natural, it can be misconstrued, because that's where the focus is, because you're not hiding it. In other words, if you're not hiding your sexuality, then a lot of times it can be construed as you're flaunting it. But really, it's not that so much as that you are allowing yourself to express in all your fullness.
I think that's a beautiful answer. It really is. It's a beautiful answer. So for you, when you dance, is it, I know this word is thrown around a lot, but is it meditative? Do you feel, how do you feel when you're dancing? How are you feeling?
It depends on the music I choose, and I actually have different things that I choose to focus on. I did a dance recently, and the whole focus of that particular dance was devotion. So you can actually choose your music and choose what it is you want to express. And in that example, I chose music and that gave me a sense of devotion. And at that time, my whole intent was the feeling that my dancing was for a higher purpose than just my own ego, I guess, and that it was really my gift to life, my contribution to life. And so that whole intent there was devotion. So in other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can choose music to express what it is you want to express, and that changes. So at that time it was devotion. The last clip that you saw, the intent there, the feeling there was just openness and life and flow. It was a veil dance, and the emerging, the coming out. So depending on, where, that's the beauty of belly dance. It expresses the fullness of life, whatever that means for you in the moment, and that can change. Sometimes I've expressed sadness, and sometimes I've expressed elation, sometimes I've expressed anger. And that's the beauty of the belly dance, is that it's a wonderful vehicle to express all of those things, and it's capable of expressing all of those things, all of your life experience.
Sounds beautiful.